Any way you can help?
I don't know. Not really our forte, to be honest.
Just skirting.
If your network's driving you nuts, we've got your back. At Tesco Mobile, we'll help you spend less on your monthly bill with club card prices. This is Supermarket Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps. Club card credit agreement, fixed or rolling monthly usage contract with Tesco Mobile may be required. Subject to status, fair use policy applies.
What is BT's unbreakable business Wi-Fi? Well, if there's construction outside your business and they cut through the broadband cables, or if a furry uninvited guest chews through your wires, or if a UFO abducts your broadband lines and your neighbour Steve, you'd still be connected. If your Wi-Fi ever drops, you're backed by EE's 4G connection on the UK's best network. Search BT Unbreakable Business Wi-Fi today. BT means business. Terms apply. 4G coverage required. Best for mobile network performance. Verified ee.co.uk/claims.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC News,
where the news never stops. This is LBC News.
From Global's newsroom, I'm Josh Bancroft. The first full day of the Queen lying in state is underway, with hundreds of thousands of people expected to arrive in London over the coming days. Extra train services are running, and people are being warned to expect disruption to London's transport system. A large security operation is also ongoing to cope with the crowds and to manage Her Majesty's State funeral on Monday. Stephen Roberts is the former Deputy Assistant Commissioner at the Metropolitan Police. He's told us the force are well prepared and a plan has been in place for some time.
Those contingency plans are reviewed on a regular basis, annually initially, but then much more frequently as people get older. So this isn't an event where the planning started last week. This is an event where the planning started probably 30 years ago, and the plans simply need to be refreshed now and brought into effect.
Today, the King is taking a private day of reflection and will not be taking part in any events. A new study is claiming people may face additional risks because they're being treated by burned-out doctors. Researchers at the University of Manchester say the link between burnout and patient safety incidents was highest among younger doctors and emergency medicine physicians. A federal jury has convicted the singer R. Kelly of several child pornography and sex abuse charges in his hometown of Chicago. The 55-year-old was found guilty on 3 counts of child pornography and 3 counts of child enticement. And Ukraine's president has raised the country's flag in the city of Izium after his forces recaptured it. Volodymyr Zelensky has visited the area and says he wants life in recaptured territory to get back to normal. From Global's newsroom, you're up to date.
LBC News. Weather.
A cloudy start to Thursday across the southeast of England as well as East Anglia. I'm Holly Harris. I'll have a full forecast in the next 15 minutes.
LBC News. Travel.
Roads in central London remaining closed until Monday, so plan your journey if you are planning on travelling. London bound on the M4, the lorry service area closed because of a breakdown at Heston Services. Through Cambridgeshire northbound, the A1M exit slip is closed at junction 15. Through Essex and South Benfleet, the A13 westbound closed because of a burst water main from Tarpots Junction at High Road and Sadler's Farm roundabout. Through Hockering in Norfolk, the A47 both directions closed because of a police incident. And through Buckinghamshire, the M1 northbound closed from junction 15 Milton Keynes to the M1 Hartwell. More in 20 minutes here on LBC News.
This is LBC News.
I'm Fraser Knight. This is LBC News. As we speak, people are continuing to file past the Queen's coffin as she lies in state at Westminster Hall. Her Majesty will remain there until the morning of her funeral on Monday, with hundreds of thousands of people due to pay their respects. That's the sound of guards who are standing by the side of the coffin, where people have walked by, bowing their heads and wiping tears from their faces. Earlier, the Queen's coffin was carried from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall, and it was led by military bands playing a funeral march. Around 4,000 people are estimated to be passing through Westminster Hall every hour. These women were among the first.
I knew what to expect, but nevertheless, it's so serene and so beautiful.
It's something that I felt I needed to do. Definitely worth the wait, yeah.
Well, LBC's Westminster editor Ben Kentish was in Westminster Hall as the public started filing through. He's described the atmosphere there as people who'd been waiting hours finally got to pay their respects.
Lots of the people filing out of Westminster Hall in what can only be described as floods of tears. There were friends and family hugging each other, consoling each other, putting their arms round each other. People who perhaps knew that they would be moved as they filed past the Queen's coffin. But really, in what we saw, and I was talking to people coming out, a real outpouring of emotion. They didn't have long. They had a long time to wait. Some of them been queuing for more than 24 hours. Once they did get into the historic hall that is Westminster Hall, in which so many events in British history have taken place, so many monarchs have lay in state before today, and of course now a hugely historic moment to add to that long list. But once they did get in there, they only had a few seconds to file past the coffin. People weren't being allowed to sort of stand around and wait and reflect, and that meant, I think, that as people walked past, they sort of did their best to take it in, did their best to pay their respects. But once they walked out the huge oak doors at the other end of the room, it really hit them, just what they'd seen and just what they'd witnessed. And there was a lot of emotion. As I say, a lot of people were very moved, and it came after a very moving procession where we saw the coffin taken from Buckingham Palace to the Palace of Westminster, two historic buildings throughout British history, of course. The coffin being trailed by the Queen's children, Prince Charles leading them. Very moving too. I watched it go past. I watched it go down Whitehall. There was absolute silence. You could have heard a pin drop as it passed, as people paid their respects. But then shortly after it, just a few moments after it did pass where I was standing, the crowd erupted into a cheer. There was clapping because, of course, there's this sort of tension between grief and mourning, but also a sense of wanting to celebrate and pay tribute and gratitude to everything Her Majesty did and was in her 70-year reign.
There are warnings the queue of people waiting to see the Queen's coffin could stretch to 10 miles over the coming days, and the wait could be as long as 30 hours. But volunteers, toilets and refreshment points have been brought in to make it as smooth as possible. LBC's reporter Emma Corr has been following the queue and sent us this update just as it started to move after 5 p.m.
I'm stood by Blackfriars Bridge watching thousands of people file past me along the Thames, and people are joining this queue every couple of seconds. I've been watching that all day. There's a steward here with a flag on his back marking the end of the queue. These people I spoke to told me they're prepared to wait as long as it takes to be able to file past the Queen's coffin.
I'll be choked, if I'm honest. I'll be a little bit choked once I'm in there next to the coffin. It's going to be a very emotional moment. She was she born the same year as my mum, and she died a few years back, and it has brought back some memories.
It may be solemn, but then you've got to reflect on someone who done good service, 70 years, and it's good, I think, to be able to have the opportunity to pay our respects for a good monarch, and she's left a good legacy for Great Britain.
I can't really truly put into words what you feel. I mean, our loss is just massive. The loss to the country, the loss to us is massive. I'll probably be a mess.
And this queue snakes from Lambeth Bridge all the way down, past the Houses of Parliament on the opposite side of the river, past St Thomas's Hospital, past County Hall, then past the London Eye, onto South Bank, down past the Tate Modern, the Globe, through Borough Market as well, and on towards Tower Bridge. This is a giant operation. 500 temporary toilets have been brought in for the public to use in this queue. There's 8 medical centres by St John's Ambulance set up along it, and thousands of volunteers and military personnel on hand as well to support the queue. There is a wristband system in place. They're handing those out along the queue as people walk towards Westminster Hall. The queue is expected to stretch all the way to Southwark Park, about an hour walking from here, and could be in total, once moving, 10 miles long. But people here optimistic, wanting to be part of this, wanting to pay their respects, and are really prepared to be out here for hours and hours to make that possible. Many people walking past with picnic blankets. Some people have cardboard boxes as well. foil blankets to keep them warm later on, extra jumpers, extra layers. People have really come out prepared to stand in line and make sure they're there to see the Queen's coffin.
Emma Corr reporting there. Well, the government set up a live tracker for the back of the queue, which at one point had more than 6,500 people watching online. The map, which shows a line showing the queue stretch along the River Thames, has been described by some people as being very British. Abigail Caraman is an assistant explorer scout leader from Norfolk. She's one of hundreds of volunteers helping to manage the queue of people.
We're working 24 hours a day, and we will be here throughout the lying in state process until 6 a.m. on Monday morning. We're just kind of helping guide the queue, a bit of welfare management. You'll find us along the route, and you'll find us over by the bag drop, just trying to help people make this process as easy as possible, really. You are able to bring food and drink to the queue. It's only once you get inside you can't take food and drink with you, so you're 100% able to have food and drink in the queue, and people are bringing chairs and things to settle in the queue and drop them off at bag drop when you get near to the front. And there's toilets all along the route, so just ask the marshal. We're trying to make the process as accessible and comfortable for people. Obviously, it's a solemn occasion and there's a deep sense of sadness, but also I think there's a real feel of community and people coming together across the country. Lots of people have travelled in. It was a really sad occasion, but also quite a nice community aspect.
This is LBC News.
In other news, a man convicted of possessing the gun used to shoot journalist Lyra McKee has been sentenced to 7 years in jail. Niall Sheeran, who's 29 and from Londonderry, pleaded guilty to having the pistol and ammunition earlier this year. Amanda Ferguson, LBC's Northern Ireland correspondent, gave us an update earlier.
Lyra was from Belfast. She was just 29 years old when she died after being shot in the Cregan area of Derry on the 18th of April 2019 while she observed rioting. The new IRA had admitted carrying out the murder, and 3 men are currently awaiting trial charged with Ms McKee's murder. But 29-year-old Niall Sheeran from Tyrconnell Street in Derry was jailed for 7 years for possessing a gun that police believe was used to kill Ms McKee, who was a writer and journalist. Now, Sheeran had previously admitted possession of the gun on dates between September 2018 and June 2020, so he will be spending 7 years in prison, followed by 5 years on licence, and he will also be subject to terrorist notification requirements under the Terrorism Act for the next 15 years. The judge at Belfast Crown Court said he believed that Sheeran was an associate of a serious terrorist gang who posed a danger to the public, and he told the court that he was not sentencing Sheeran in connection with the murder of Ms McKee. Speaking outside court, Lyra McKee's sister Nicola said that the story of the gun has come to an end, but the story of the gunman continues, and she said she would like the gunman to have the courage to come forward and accept responsibility for what he did, but noted that that was realistically probably not going to happen at this stage.
I'm Fraser Knight. Stay tuned. Coming up, we'll take a look at some of the other headlines, including the World Health Organization saying the end of the coronavirus pandemic could be in sight.
LBC News.
Sell your car the motorway way, where dealers compete to give you